Karen London, and I work for the Food for Life team on Served here, and I'm with Phil Shelley. So Phil, if you could just introduce yourself please, and give a bit of your background in hospital food, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. Phil Shelley, I'm chair of the NHS Food Review. Well, it seemed a long time ago that I joined the NHS, that's for sure, and it's back in 1982. I came in as a head chef in the Southwest, very much from the hospitality industry. And then I was asked to join the management team to retail, and then led as catering services manager. And around 8 or 9 years ago, I joined the facilities team in Taunton. And recently, the acute hospital, mental health and community hospitals have joined up to make a really large trust within Somerset. And I'm deputy head of facilities now in that role.
Fantastic. Yeah, quite a journey then. I can imagine that you've seen some changes. Can you just explain what the hospital food review is, and why was there a call for it? How did you end up getting involved in that?
Well, in the summer of 2019, we had an outbreak of listeriosis in which 7 patients unfortunately tragically died after eating hospital sandwiches contaminated with Listeria monocytogenes. Following this, the Health Secretary Matt Hancock announced a root and branch review of food served and sold in hospitals. The scope of the review was also around safety, nutrition, quality, production methods, and all food that's served throughout the hospital remit.
Fantastic. And what's been your role in that review?
Again, that was a bit of a journey for me. I was approached first of all by Simon Corbin, who is the director and head of profession for NHS Estates. He asked if I was willing to chair an independent review following the food poisoning outbreak. Once I agreed and we had discussions, the name was put forward to Simon Stevens, NHS Chief Exec, and then it was put forward to Matt Hancock. And after a few weeks, I was given the go-ahead to form an appropriate panel, recommend an advisor, which was actually done at quite late notice, and then agree to write a report over a 4 or 5 month period.
Yeah, and I guess that's turned into quite a long period with the situation that we're in at the moment. How have you found the work? Have you enjoyed it? Has it been rewarding and enjoyable, or has it been more of a challenge?
Well, working with NHSI and the Department of Health has certainly been fulfilling, and personally for me it's been life-changing. The reason for that is I selected a panel that I knew would be knowledgeable, honest and committed, but they have given so much more than that. And that's been the bit for me, is being with people so regularly that have given everything to not just catering, but around patient care through food, through nutrition, through hydration. You know, I feel incredibly proud and honoured to be asked to lead the team, and of course producing a key document that I hope will help us to strategically make the right decisions.
Yeah, and I know that Prue Leith's been working with you on it as well as an advisor. Has she been quite hands-on? I can imagine that she would be. Yeah, from everything I've seen of her. How have you found working with Prue?
She has been absolutely brilliant, because as soon as it was announced, we had a very long phone call, and she made it quite clear that I was the chair, she was the advisor, she was not going to interfere. She wanted to be the glitter that was sprinkled around, you know, and she would help us at the right time to be able to actually talk to ministers and say, you know, I put my name to this and I want results, and we've used that really effectively. So she's always been there when I've needed her, but what she hasn't done is saturated us with her opinion. So I think the panel, the site visits, and me personally, we feel that Prue was the right choice, and there's been a massive benefit.
Great, that's really good to hear. How did you visit to hospitals, how were they received from the hospitals? Because we know how busy everybody is, and just wondered how they were received, and were you surprised at the level of good practice or even poor practice that was happening when you did those visits?
Well, planning hospital visits, they need due care and attention. It is not about turning up and catching anybody out. It's about, first of all, ensuring that we cover all areas. So we need to ensure that we cover acute, community and mental health. We need to cover all types of services, you know, fresh cook, cook freeze, cook chill, plated. You know, people need to feel they're part of the review. We were certainly welcome to all sites and could have added a lot more, but for the time constrictions, that was difficult. What we did see were different levels of quality. We saw infrastructure and equipment that needed investment, but we saw total commitment and pride from the catering teams and resilient leadership. And that stuck out for me in all of the areas. The passion that people had to improve their services was there.
Fantastic. That's really great to hear. Why do you think this review is going to succeed, where maybe in the past they've gone flat? There's been quite a lot of emphasis on hospital food over the last few years, with, as you say, celebrity chefs getting involved and different coming at it from different angles and different reviews. Why do you think this one's different, and why do you think it might succeed?
Well, first of all, given the freedom to involve key groups and associations on the panel, having key stakeholders as well that understand innovation. We needed to be inclusive of contractors and suppliers to show that everybody has a part to play and their voice will be heard. The recommendations and the checklist will, of course, help form an action plan, and that needs to be managed with a firm link back to NHSI, as well as the food standards linking with the recommendations. We will also keep the Department of Health up to date. And there's been no secret that we didn't want to replicate what had happened before. We want to make a difference. And I believe that the way we're setting out for the future will make that happen.
Yeah, and from what you said, with you picking the panel, you've had the experts on there from the industry and from all across the industry. So I guess that's different as well. Are you confident that the ministers and Secretary of State are going to implement the recommendations? Have you had any indication of that?
Well, right from the start, there's been a clear brief that this is an independent report. There was never going to be any guarantee that we were going to get any or full support from government. However, we've had access to the Secretary of State and Joe Churchill, Minister for Public Health, and considering the circumstances, to be given access to them personally, I think speaks volumes of how they hold this report. We've been keeping them up to date. We've been mapping out progress reports, which has identified sort of key challenges. In recent weeks, both Prue and I met with the Secretary of State. He has reaffirmed his support for the report and, of course, importantly, all of the recommendations. Fantastic.
And is there a role for the CQC going forward as part of the review?
Yeah, there certainly is. And we need a commitment from those within CQC to align the audit responsibilities that they already have with the recommendations of the report. Soft FM doesn't always invite the appropriate time that CQC spend on sites. We need this opportunity to raise that game. We already have good communication with colleagues in CQC, and that will continue. But I think what the panel can do is hopefully have a relationship with CQC that can support inspections.
Great stuff. Do you think the government will be able to find the money for the capital investment in kitchens?
Well, as part of the report, we've linked with the up and coming spending review. We realise that funding is needed for large, medium and small projects. And it's only fair that once we know what Treasury agree, then there will be a formal process to apply. But at this point in time, it's difficult for me to actually align exactly what that will be.
Great, thank you. Do you feel there's a benefit to cooking fresh food on site in hospitals? Can you see the benefit of that?
First of all, there's an enormous benefit for hospitals, patients and staff to be able to achieve exemplary food on site. Fresh cooking has got to be the goal if it is achievable, if it's practical and of course cost effective. And each situation is slightly different. We've realised that one size does not fit all, but everybody needs to be able and needs to be prepared to be challenged to innovate.
Yeah, and with fresh cooking comes obviously the workforce, and I know from working with hospitals in my role that can be a challenge sometimes. And some of the larger trusts where kitchens have been shut down, there's been a definite link to having those skills in the kitchen.
Yeah.
How do you see how do you think young people could be inspired, not just hospital catering, but catering as a career? But more, we see lots of celebrities, chefs on the television in restaurants, but maybe public sector catering isn't seen as the best career choice. How do you think we could inspire more young people to actually think about it and take it up, which would enable obviously fresh cooking?
Well, I think that's a great question, and certainly that's an area that I personally believe we can drive positively. In the current climate, the NHS is held up as a standard bearer throughout the world. You know, we're free to all. The quality of care and staff are totally committed to their roles. I've always understood that anyone that works in the NHS is not just in a job, they're in a vocation. And this does include facilities and catering teams. Being involved in the recovery of a patient through good food, as well as serving our colleagues great choices, and that includes retail areas, that should attract those that want to be part of making a difference. I think we've seen over recent months that COVID has brought so much pressure on the hospitality industry, but what that has enabled us to do is link with those chefs involved in that industry to bring them into the NHS to share their skills.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think the sort of current situation has really shone a light on the skills that are out there and how they can be brought together. And I know that in Food for Life Served Here in our standards, we do talk about staff training and staff development. Do you see a role for Food for Life Served Here in the future in actually verifying standards in hospitals, particularly maybe around national guidelines on food, which are mandatory?
Well, as you know, Dr. Susanna McWilliam joined me on the panel for the review, and she represented the Soil Association brilliantly. Our discussions around accreditation were always lively. There's Food for Life Served in hospitals has a part to play in improving the quality of our food served in hospitals. Importantly, what the Soil Association has done is lifted the bar. We know that we need accreditation as a status that is open to all types of services. You know, we want everybody to realise, what can I achieve to lift the bar in my service? So yes, there's certainly a part to play, but I think all of us have a part to play in driving standards forward.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, and what's your vision for hospital food? Where can you see hospital food in 10 years' time?
Gosh, we're going to be in a very different place, aren't we? I mean, even just in the last few months, how things shift. Well, certainly there are a few things around the food standards that will happen that I think will drive a different way of catering within healthcare. And because the review and the recommendations will be linked to the food standards, you know, we need, first of all, to be prepared to be challenged. For those that take up the challenge, they will flourish. for those that don't take up the challenge, life is going to be very, very difficult, because if we're not prepared to get to the next level, then it will be very, very testing. What we must do is build up our strength through people like the healthcare organisations, through hospital catering, through the British Dietetic Association and our nursing colleagues, because being on a platform together certainly builds confidence and it builds credibility. Regional and national Chef of the Year competitions will help to raise our profile. They'll also help the public understand the skills and the responsibilities and of course the passion that we have, and it can create a sense of occasion that our patients, staff and visitors in hospitals deserve. We can do so much more. It will take time, but I think that the review will drive that time forward and help us achieve a lot more.
Fantastic. Yeah, and what's next for you, Phil? Now, you know, this work's coming to an end. I can imagine that you'd be quite sad to sort of hand it over, and yeah, will you be keeping sort of a check at the reviews of the progress of the review planned, or what's next for you?
I've been asked to chair the expert panel.
Fantastic.
So I won't be letting go. For me, it's a passion now we're setting the standard, but the hard work really starts now. You know, it is no good to us to write a report that disappears. We need a report that gets driven. The expert panel will do that, but I want to maintain a pace that I think is suitable for everybody. And you know, we are aligned to NHSI and the Department of Health, and they want to see progress. They want to see change. So I will make sure that happens. Fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for your time. That's been really useful, and yeah, congratulations. It just sounds like it's been an amazing piece of work, and really hope that it gets the success that it deserves. Yeah.
Thanks, Karen.